Hello and welcome to the GW Book Club, where I am joined by my good friend Stu to chat about classic Games Workshop books. And this time, we're not actually talking about a book quite. We're talking about a box set that features a book, and that is the 5th edition Warhammer Armies Realm of Chaos. Now, Stu, this is a classic in many ways, probably not the most famous Realm of Chaos release,
No.
but were you familiar with this? Have you read this one before?
Yes, I knew it existed, and I had to delve into it a few times for stuff on my own channel. But I didn't pick it up at the time. I was in a hobby break at that point. I think we said this was 97-ish. So I
Yeah,
was
it would have been
well,
1997, fifth edition of the
I was in
game.
my second year of university at that point, I believe, or second half of my first year of university,
Sure.
depending on when it came out. And yeah, I was definitely not looking at these things back then, but it definitely overshadowed, like you said, because how much the originals were seen as these amazing books. So so much so you can buy the reprints today.
Mm.
You can't buy a reprint of this, and I think that says a lot about it. However, it's really good. I think it's a bit of I think it's a bit of a gem that maybe gets overlooked, actually.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think it's a really interesting sort of transitionary text, I think, for chaos
Hmm.
in Warhammer, because this book. So the reason it's not only a book is that it was released as a boxed set. So during the 5th edition, you could get your magic for Warhammer as a box set of cards. Essentially, it was a card-based magic
Yeah.
system, and they released this Realm of Chaos boxed set to have all of the new chaos magic and special magic items and new templates and stuff like that. And inside that box, you then also got this Warhammer Armies Realm of Chaos book. And what it was trying to do was kind of bridge the gap between those third edition Realm of Chaos books that were full of just wild, outrageous creativity. You know, the real beginnings of like proper chaos in the Warhammer world. And then in the fourth edition of Warhammer Fantasy, which was a much more accessible version of the game, the Warhammer Armies book for Chaos kind of scales things back quite a lot. It's a lot more
Yeah.
simplistic, isn't it? You basically is here's all of your Chaos Warriors and your Beastmen and your demons, and it kind of presents these things in an oddly matter of fact way. Now it's still a great book, but it stuffs so much stuff into that fourth edition book that basically nothing gets a lot of time. And then in
Yeah.
this book, there's a real effort, it feels like, to reconnect with that sprawling weirdness of the Realm of Chaos books. So the Slaves to Darkness and the Lost and the Damned.
Yeah, I agree. I think that comes across in its presentation, as well as just the content. And there's a lot of text here,
Hmm.
so much so that there's no heavy metal pages in this book, which
Sure.
is
Yeah.
really
Very
really.
surprising.
I got to the end of reading this. I mean, I've read it before, but reading it for this show, and I got to the end and thought, well, something's different. Well, there's no miniatures in this. There's normally pages of heavy metal, and it's just they clearly, they, rather than filling up pages sometimes with content from White Dwarf, which was quite often the way. This was a case of there's no room for that because
Yeah.
we've got all this wonderful artwork and these little vignettes and stories and quotes and things that are beautifully presented within artwork around the side of these scrolls and things, and it's all here. It's really really detailed, and it feels like we've got to get back the essence of what's in those original books and
Yeah.
put them into this. It's just the way it feels when I read it.
No, I think you're right. I think you're dead right. Because actually, it's kind of like those Realm of Chaos books from the 80s and the early 90s. Like it's almost like an illuminated text, like a medieval
Yes.
like manuscript, right? Where you've got the art around the corner of all the pages. And I know that you see this in other armies books and codex books, of different eras. But here, it feels like it's trying to reconnect to that realm of chaos, that classic realm of chaos. Sort of, they're very odd. The images are all quite like arcane, and there's like a lot of there's a real metal vibe. There's like a
Yeah,
real
yeah.
dangerous vibe to a lot of it. It's full of skulls and symbols and runes, all of this kind of stuff. It's absolutely fantastic. So that gives you just this visual sort of punch as soon as you're looking at all the pages. And then there is loads of text, like you say, loads of really good stuff to read and to enjoy. So it's written by Thomas Pirinen and Rick Priestley. But then there's loads and loads of art throughout the book as well. So they really
Yeah.
do. They don't illustrate it with miniatures, but they do make sure to illustrate it with lots of amazing pictures.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it now. It makes you wonder whether you see Thomas Poonan's influence. He obviously later goes on to write the next edition of the game, and is widely regarded as sort of the one of the fathers, alongside obviously John Blanche with his artwork. But in terms of that really dark, grimdark period of Warhammer fantasy,
Yeah,
and you can look at this and maybe see some of the origins of that styling in
absolutely.
this book
Yeah,
in a period that was very bright and very colourful
yes.
for so much of it. And maybe it's just the visuals because there's loads of black and white art in here and we haven't got the colour miniatures pages. So maybe if that was the case, I wouldn't
I
have
think you're
perceived it in
right.
this way.
No, I agree.
But
I think that it is on that sort of the journey from. So obviously, Pyrenean had worked on a lot of different stuff, and White Dwarf and various other products for Games Workshop. He done like the vampire counts and things of that nature. This book, I think, and its companion book, because this doesn't have any of the special characters in, they're in a Champions of Chaos release that was
mhm,
separate, because again, they couldn't fit any special characters into this book. But this one and that, I think, are absolutely one of the key sort of stepping stones to the creation of Mordheim, which fully lets loose into the grimdark, and then that sets the stage for the sixth edition of Warhammer Fantasy
yeah,
Battle. And I think that it's all responding to what's happening in sort of wider pop culture, musically. Like there's a transition in the sort of music space from classic pop into much more sort of metal infused stuff that's happening as well over this time period. But I think absolutely this is that journey. The road to sixth edition starts here, pretty much, I think.
yeah. I can see it. I hope that wasn't just me perceiving it in that way. Even on the inside cover where you've got the names of the authors, that there's the Zinchian sort of bird head there. It's a beautiful piece
So
of
good.
artwork,
Yeah.
and it's dark. It's not common. Some of the art in here has got that sort of slightly cartoonesque stuff that was around in this period, which I still like as well. But this was just a really almost timeless piece of really good fine art, fantasy art, and that kind of sets the tone, I think, for a lot of what's going on in this book.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because that's a Des Hanley piece. And because there's a
Mm.
couple of his like greater demons of Zinch that he draws, and he really emphasizes the sort of avian nature of it. Obviously, we see that in a lot of other art and miniatures over the years, but I think he gives it this kind of. It almost is like the Skeksis from Dark Crystal, the Jim Henson movie, if you're familiar with
Yes,
that.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
they've got this really elongated nose and the beak and all that sort of stuff. It's fantastic. It's really, really, really good stuff. Yeah, some of my favorite chaos art, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and there's just so much more like that throughout this book. This becomes a bit of a coffee table book if you want it to be, because
Sure,
there's
yeah.
there's almost art on every page, even if it's just the border is large and really really detailed. There's so much gone into it. Must have been quite an undertaking, and clearly the deliberate choice to make sure that it was there because they're
Mm.
really creating a feel and a tale that maybe they felt was lost with that previous army book for fourth edition.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And I was always jealous of chaos players because I didn't. I've had like chaos armies here and there over the years, but like it always felt like chaos were the favorite child of a lot of like Warhammer designers and a lot of editions. So they would get stuff like this, and it was like, oh, if you play chaos, you get this amazing box set. You don't just get a regular armies book; you get this amazing box set with your dedicated magic spells, and you kind of get all this really really cool stuff. So yeah, I definitely was looking over with a bit of envy, so
Yeah.
maybe I should have fallen to chaos myself. But yeah, no, it's definitely an amazing package. And then the book itself, in terms of like its content, I think is doing some really interesting things. So
Hmm.
it's a transitionary period, not just for Pyrenean and for the sort of journey to sixth edition in terms of tone and feel of Warhammer, but it's also the point at which it becomes a lot of. There's actually quite a few things that kind of get codified here, things that have been suggested or have been part of the lore in the past and fallen away. It's brought back and it's made into this is the modern law of chaos. Like this is how it works. So things like the much cleaner distinction between warriors of chaos and like the mortal followers of chaos, versus the demons of chaos versus the beastmen and those kinds of
Yeah.
hordes of chaos. You'll see that in the sixth edition, they'll all get separate armies books mostly, but you're not seeing that quite here. They're all still in this book, but they're actually separated out. In the fourth edition, it's just the Chaos Army, and you're taking bits of everything. Here, it's kind of suggesting, well, actually, you're going to want to create your army around Chaos Warriors, maybe. You can still use some of the other stuff, but it's a Chaos Warrior like that's your main force.
Yes.
That's the retinue that you're building, and then you'll have some flavors to add to it. That's a really interesting like approach that they start taking, and it also informs the lore and the actual sort of background as well.
Yeah, I agree. There's some really nice. It's quite in depth for each section as well. I think something I noticed because of work I've been doing recently for Old World is looking at the way they handle the Marauder tribes here,
Sure.
and the names that the Marauder tribes are giving to the Chaos Gods,
Yeah.
because in the those people who don't know, in the latest Warhammer the Old World rulebook, it's been updated a little bit, and the four main Chaos God names have been they've kind of disappeared, and they've not disappeared from the game and the setting, but they're using names that the tribes would know them as within that time period, and some people are a little bit put out by it, some people don't mind, etc. But then you always happened to be flicking through this around the same time and realized that they were using two of the names I think are the same and two are very similar, and that's the way the Marauder tribes in this edition were referring to the gods, because that's how they, in their primitive tribal world that they lived in, that's the names they knew for the gods. That's the way they interacted with them. And I think that's really good. I love that. I think that gives those more detail and those more layers. And I thought it was really interesting. Maybe smart anyway, because people have been moaning about it. And it's sometimes when things have changed for the worst kind of things. It's not actually changed, it's old. But I really like it. But inside of this book, I could just kind of like that. I really like that each thing's got its identity that's quite strong within this book. And we've already said there's so many words in this book, there's so much text to give time to tell these stories and to go into detail about all of these different areas of the armies, be that Chaos Warriors, be that Marauders, be that the demons or the Beastmen.
Yeah.
They've all got a good amount of love within the book.
Yeah, I agree, actually. Yeah. And I also like that kind of different aspects of chaos and the idea that, yeah, people will be worshipping chaos, but they won't, if they worship Tzeentch, they might not know it as Tzeentch. They might know it as
Yes.
Char or Char or how
Yes.
it's pronounced, and that kind of thing. And there's also one of the things that I really enjoy is that in like the history, because we've got the classic Armies book sort of timeline of chaos, there's mention of the Cathayan city that has fallen to the worship of Tzeentch by another name. It's a different name to the one that's used in the early Jack Yeovil fiction. So it's not
Yeah.
it's not exactly the same name, but I kind of feel like it must be a nod to that, because it's been suggested in Jack Yeovil's stories that there is a Tzeentchian cult in Cathay
Yes.
at this point. And I kind of feel like they're linking those two dots, which I think is neat.
Yes, yeah, and long may it continue, and maybe turn up in the
I
old
would
world.
love I'd love for that to be sort of a something that's picked up on in the modern lore, because it kind of adds a really interesting complexion. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Chaos Marauders. This is the real beginning of like the proper what we would now understand as Chaos Marauders. They kind of
Yes.
they're codified in this book. So there's always been barbarians, there's always been Norse, there's always been corrupted savages from the northern wastes. They've been about, but it's in this book that they kind of say, right, okay, actually, Chaos Marauders as a thing. We're going to put them back into the actual armies. These aren't just the sort of random chaos thugs that we've seen in earlier editions. We're going to build out their culture. We're going to build out how they worship chaos, and we're going to give them more of a place within the story of chaos and the story of the Warhammer world. And from now on, we'll see Chaos Marauders pretty regularly, and even right the way into Age of Sigmar. This is something from here that now is commonplace in the Warhammer world, just as common as Beastmen and Chaos Warriors.
Yes, yeah, for sure, and it's I think it's a really needed balance to it. You can't have all your humans in big black armor.
Sure.
Otherwise, you end up with too many armored dudes, and you need a source for these armored dudes. They're not all ex-Bretonians, are they? So yeah, I think it's pretty good. It's I just enjoyed every little bit
Mm.
it's like so often we talked about this. I say this a lot when we've reviewed these books. Very often, it's the fourth edition book that feels like the birth of the what we know in seventh, eighth edition, old world, etc. This feels like this is it. This was kind of the new refresh 101 of what chaos is going to be. And as much as those armies do split off into separate army books in the future, the core of them and then and the lore around them and the way they work maintain. They're the same things that are sort of born from this massive tome, really.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's right. What is really interesting, actually, I went back and compared. So I agree. I think that this is the sort of this is the baseline for modern
Hmm.
chaos. The fourth edition book, it has a lot of this. A lot of the stuff that's in this book was in fourth edition as well, but it's kind of less. It's almost less coherent. It's covering more ground in a way in the fourth edition in order to just stuff a load of things in.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily have as much time to kind of build a cohesive, like, the nature of chaos and what chaos means today in the Warhammer world and sort of how it's what's it up to, what's it all about. There are elements of that lore, but not in a as compelling a way. I think it's a great book, but I think that there's a lot of stuff lost between the original Realm of Chaos books and then that fourth edition book that's picked up again here. And there's actually a load of text in this book that are direct quotations from the Realm of Chaos books. So there are
Yes.
actual elements that have been lifted and just placed in here in a new context that work really, really well. And I think that's great. And I think one of the ways that spirit has been kept alive is like having things like the little vignettes and the little weird stories about getting lost in the chaos wastes, and then these weird bits of art, and like taking the time to demonstrate what the realm of chaos is. This is not just Warhammer Armies Chaos, like fourth edition, which was how do you build an army of chaos. This book is what is the realm of chaos about, and what are the armies that emerge from it. It kind of is doing both things at the same time, and I think that that's quite powerful. That's quite effective. Because that
Yeah.
also it gives room to really center what will become the broad narrative of Warhammer. For better and for worse, from here on out, chaos has always been positioned as this kind of creeping, like, destructive force that is overtaking the Warhammer world. Yes, that it has been suggested that it's inevitable that it will be the damnation of the Warhammer world before this point. But I think it's here that it really becomes the sort of core narrative background of the Warhammer world. That actually
Yeah.
not just the corruption that's going to destroy the empire, the enemy within that we've seen
Yeah.
before, but actually the armies of chaos will inevitably wash over the entire Warhammer world and destroy everything. This book is really is pushing that narrative, and I think it does it well here, and I think it does it well with Archeon when we get him in the Champions of Chaos book. It kind of positions that really well because it doesn't say that this is going to happen next week. It just says, "Oh, the end of the universe is inevitable because chaos will
Yes.
conquer all." Um, Unfortunately, or fortunately for some people, I'm sure they love it, but some people might find it unfortunate that that will be how the end times ultimately sort of is played out, is from the story that begins here in a real way.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. It is the first time that they've kind of told the story or set this recurring narrative that they are going to get you. And the tale of the Great War against Chaos is told in this book. It's over a few pages as well. There's enough detail there to give a really strong narrative of. It's almost this is when they nearly did it. Okay, they're going to the next time they're going to do it again, and we're nearly there. And next time it's going to be for good. And you're going to be on a round base afterwards. But it's, but and I enjoyed reading that part of it. It's always great about reading about the Great War against Chaos, partly because, again, in my modern day love of the game, we're moving towards that
Yeah.
timeline now, so we get to experience it within game rather than as something that was a story told from the past. But so it's interesting to see that in here as an example.
Yeah.
Pre-Storm of Chaos days as well. So this was
Yes.
that was a big thing at that point, wasn't it? That was the big tale of
Mm.
that explains what Chaos was all about.
It's always interesting to me as well that they retained the sort of extraterrestrial origins of the Warhammer world. And you see this
Mm.
in all of the editions of Warhammer as well. But that would have been, and I'd love to know, and I guess it's a question that could be asked, but I'd love to know why the decision was made when all of the changes that occur to the Warhammer like fluff over the years are like, all right, we want to simplify this, we want to clarify that, we want to consolidate this bit of stuff. That element of Warhammer's history, that actually the old ones came from beyond the stars, has always remained the same. Like the origins of the Warhammer world and the reason that chaos floods in from the warp, that has always been because of these extraterrestrial travelers. And it's such an unusual element of a fantasy world to retain. And I guess it has its roots, it goes back into Michael Moorcock and sort of the universal fantasy stories. And I think there's even isn't Gandalf even not of the Middle Earth and like his race of wizard friends. So I guess there's
Yes,
precedent for this
yes.
sort of thing, right?
He's not human. He's not the
Right.
human magic user. He's basically a demigod,
Right.
essentially. So,
So yes,
um,
maybe there's an element of it that just is it's just one of those cool random bits of like odd science
mm,
fiction within the fantasy. But yeah, I always thought it was interesting that they retain that, and that's here again. They talk about the extraterrestrial old ones, how they came to the Warhammer world and intended to do good, open these portals, and something went wrong, and chaos flooded in as a result. But yeah,
yeah.
it's an interesting. It's always a great narrative, I think, to read. It's presented in a really fun way.
Yeah, I still don't know why they moved away from that, and I'm sure they've got what seems like good narrative reasons for it. But I I've always enjoyed that. When I love reading all the heresy novels, and there's loads of talk about the old ones there, and the links to the Cabal and things, and it's so much more, feels so much real, or
Mm.
potentially real, when you've got a whole universe. It's the way we might tread on some toes here for some people. It's the way a lot of people in our world view the world in terms of a universe, and for me, it makes sense then to do that within fantasy worlds rather than just being this planet that's the old world and but we don't know its origins. Where it makes sense that there is some kind of outside influence to it, and I love the idea of the old world sitting there within the same universe that Warhammer 40,000 is. For me, probably is in my head.
Oh yeah, they're surrounded by warp storms, like
Yeah.
version of the fluff. I've always loved that. Yeah, that's always good.
It
You
could be
could,
a different time period as well.
oh
I don't even
sure,
care where it's just in the time. It just, the fact that it just exists within that is good. I like it.
yeah, I think it's fun. I think it can be really fun. Obviously, you don't want a Space Marine chapter landing in
No,
Altdorf.
they don't ever need to connect.
No, but
That's the
it's
thing.
still
Is
it's
they,
still a neat thing to have. Yeah, yeah,
and
no,
if
I
people want to
agree.
do that, they can do. I mean,
Sure,
we've only got to look at the siege book from third
of
edition, and
course. Yeah.
you've got sort of some weird stuff going on there. But I just like the fact that there could be a connection. He doesn't have to explicitly say it, but I think to kind of almost deliberately disregard it now
Mm,
is a bit of a shame, because I think just having it there is quite fun. But
yeah.
it can be what you
No,
make of it, can't it?
I agree. I think it is fun. The other, well, I mean, there's lots of things that they've retained into this book that I think are great.
Mm,
Something that I really like, and I don't, they're still around, but I don't think they get enough play actually, is dragon ogres. So
mm,
these kind of creatures of chaos, they actually predate chaos in the lore, which I think is
yeah,
fantastic. And they are one of the first sort of natural creatures of the Warhammer world that pledges allegiance to chaos in return for gifts of chaos, and that
yeah.
in their case is unnaturally long life. And I just think it's so cool. I think they're a fantastic. That the actual design is amazing. I think that element of the lore being like these are these are these great beasts, this great civilization that predates even the elves, and they were the first to fall. I think that that's so cool. It really paints them as this just like very ancient evil, and an
Yeah.
evil through choice. They weren't. They're not like chaos trolls, which were just kind of corrupted and this kind of thing that just happened. These are a civilization that they decided to uh,
Mm.
join chaos. Yeah, I really like. I think that some of the models over the years for the Dragon Ogres have been amazing.
Yes, I agree completely. I quite like the most recent ones, which
Sure.
are very much still in the game today as well. And so, yes, they are always been fun miniatures, and it's a very simple sort of background or lore to them, but it's the simplicity of a brutal, simple creature, which is, well, if I can live longer and kill more and live my simple, violent life, almost animalistic,
Mm.
literally half animal, then I think it works well. But yeah, I think it's nice to see their origins being so old, and some of the older miniatures are really, really good fun as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's all. I mean, this is some of the text that has been lifted from like previous editions, but
Mm,
the sort of narrative that they are, people of the old world. When they hear a thunderstorm, they might be hearing the ancient dragon ogres clashing at the top of mountains. Like it
yes,
paints such an evocative picture. I really love it. And then we only see in battle the like younger ones who are trying to find their sort of prove their worth because the old ones are just massive, right? They're
yes.
Kragnos or more. But yeah, I think that's very cool. All of the Beastmen, I think, are great. I'm a big Beastman.
Hmm.
I really like them. I think that this is where Bestigors existed in previous editions, but they tended to
Mm,
be. I think I'm right in saying they tended to be more just like champions and like heroes within units. Here might be the first time that we're separating them out because you had Gores before and you've had Ungors before as the sort of weaker, sniveling,
yeah,
sort of, the not as powerful. The best of Gores being a sort of separate unit and becoming their own thing as well, kind of giving you the multiple tiers, which will enable them to make a full army list in the future
yes,
edition. In the same way that having Marauders helps you to have another troop choice for a Chaos Warriors army, it kind of gives you more
yes.
more options, which is going to be necessary. The demons. How do you feel about the demons? There are a lot of classics in here. I don't think there's many new demons introduced at this point.
No, no, it doesn't seem that way. They're always my least favorite part of
Hmm.
these books as well. I don't know what it is, but never. I've always been more of a fan of the more human connection to the Marauders and the Warriors and things like that. But I think the demons are presented fine, but there's nothing that really jumps out at me as amazing. Apart from a couple of amazing bits of artwork for some of the greater demons. There's a great demon of Corn, I think, in the middle of the Great War Against Chaos story part there. I don't know which page number that's on. It's
Sure.
absolutely stunning piece of
Is that the
artwork, but
Mark Gibbons one?
it might be Mark Gibbons. You'll
Yeah,
probably be better identifying
I think it
the
could be
artist than
that
me.
one, and it is really special. Yeah, it's really fantastic. Yes, it is. Yeah.
He's almost in front of that's a heavy metal band T-shirt. That picture.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Yeah, it very much is. Yeah, I mean demons I feel the same actually. I think that demons for me are they kind of have that sort of the effect of like ninjas in movies, I think, where when there's just one, they're amazing. They're awesome. They're very, very cool. They do amazing things on screen, and you're just like, these are the coolest guys ever. When you introduce a whole load of them, they tend to drop like flies and be not as interesting. It tends
They
to
look
be
like the
the case.
bad guys in Power Rangers rather than doing this.
Sure, yeah, they sort of lose some of that magic. So for me, the demons here are when you just have a few of them, they are really cool. They're so thematic. Their models are awesome. I really love the idea of like sorcerers with their own retinue of mortal followers or shamans,
Yeah,
beastmen shamans, who have summoned maybe one unit or maybe one greater demon, and that's like the extent of their powers because demons are so powerful and so rare that actually you
yeah.
don't want entire armies of them. because that only happens during the Storm of Chaos or the End Times. That is a major event.
Yes.
So I'm kind of like, I would happily not have armies of just demons because I kind of prefer the mortals with a bit of demonic support.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
but I think there are some great demon models, and I think there are some really cool demon like ideas. I actually quite like that you have the summoning circle here. So you get the template for the
Hmm.
summoning circle, and you can start at the start of the game summoning a greater demon. And then it might take you however many turns for it to actually materialize, and your sorcerer can't do anything else. They're doing the ritual to summon the greater demon, which I think is fantastic. And I also do quite like that if you die, the demon is still summoned immediately, rather than you don't just you don't just lose everything if your sorcerer dies, but you're having to spend them. You might get unlucky, and it might take 3 turns for your demon to turn up, and you've been able to use your greater demon or your sorcerer for that entire time. So it's kind of the sort of cruel twist of fate on that.
Good fun though, and games which I seem to have loved over the years, putting summoning circles into their rule. There's one in the third edition Armies book, wasn't there as well? It was very much like showing your mum. Look at this. What's that? It's all right, mum. It was satanic panic going on at the time. Pentagrams everywhere. But no,
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm with you though completely with. No, I've never been drawn to whole Chaos Demon armies. I'm much like one or two
Hmm.
has within a wider army. I know that's just a aesthetic choice, really,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Same.
It's
Yeah, I really like Chaos Warriors. I like Chaos Marauders, and I like Beastmen. I'm quite partial to the Beastmen. I think they're very fun. I just think that
they're
even
not
it,
fun, Jordan. Don't invite them round.
a great bunch of lads. They're just they're really good to watch the game with. Fantastic stuff. Now, I think that there's my only challenge to the Beastman side of things is, and I think this is true here, and it's also true in sixth edition when they have their own army list, their own book, is that there's not quite enough options. You've got your
Hmm.
three troop choices now, and you've
Yeah.
got Minotaurs, and they get some other stuff as well later on. But they almost can't. They kind of feels like they need something else a little bit different. Where's your Beastman Rangers, or the Beastmen who like live in the trees, or what I mean? Like something. I don't know what it is, but something else that kind of adds another aspect to their army, a little bit different.
Yeah, maybe. I think you might start to lose the essence of what their law and their society is
Perhaps,
about when you
yeah.
do those kind of things, and that's maybe why as the army's grown over the years that those slots within the roster, if we're going to think about it as a game, have been filled with minotaurs
Mm.
and great beasts and kind of weirder things like that, and
Yeah.
chariots, I suppose. And
I mean,
I'm not
I
sure
guess
if there was chariots in this. I can't remember, but I'm not sure if there's beastmen chariots at this point.
because they
But
did, yeah. Because you get the Minotaurs, right? Which are
yeah.
so you take a look at the Beastman army. You've got Ungors, which are little beastmen, and then you get Gors and Bestigors, which are regular sized beastmen, and then you get Minotaurs, which are really big beastmen. But then they introduce like Cygors, I think there are, which are
Yeah.
just like giant beastmen. So you just like it's all just these it's increasing scale of beastman.
Scale of
Yeah.
Beastman.
And it's the same thing with, not to go too far off topic, but like with Tau battle suits, where you go from, okay, so we've got the stealth suit, which is really cool, and we've got the crisis suit, and we've got the broadside, but then we're going to
Yeah.
introduce another suit that's bigger, and then we're going to introduce a bigger suit than that, and then another bigger suit than that. I personally prefer a little bit more variation than just a scaled
You
up
want a different
the
suit,
same
and
thing.
you want
Yeah,
a different suit of Beastman.
I want, yeah, maybe I want a beast man in a Tau suit. Maybe that's what I'm arguing for. But whatever it is, I don't know. I think I prefer sort of a bit more variation. That's, I guess, why I quite like the Marauders in the
Mm.
chaos, in the sort of mortal horde of chaos, because it means that your warrior retinue that is built around chaos warriors, chaos knights, can have something that's complementary but different. And it doesn't.
Hmm.
I mean, so I'm sure someone would argue that a marauder is just a scaled down Chaos Warrior, but like it
Yeah.
feels slightly different to me in a way that I think is quite fun. Now I am
Hmm.
conscious. I'm probably contradicting myself here because I have also just earlier said that like demon, I'm not that big a fan of demons, which are all over the place. So,
Yeah. I
so
want
I'm
something different, but I don't want
they're
anything
too different.
different.
Yeah, so I'm probably an impossible customer to satisfy when it comes to this. I guess, and actually, they're saying that they did satisfy me because they also, again, codify something with the undivided chaos right here,
Mm,
right? So this is the chaos of all flavors, all of the gods. You don't just have to be dedicated to a single chaos god, and you don't even necessarily need to be dedicated to just a retinue around chaos warriors or just a beastman retinue, or just a demonic one. Like it gives you a bit more flexibility in having bits of everything, so you can still create your chaos armies that are a bit messier and a bit more chaotic.
yes.
With a small set.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. That's your all in max. Choose anything you want. Total package, every channel, kind of every flow. I, I like that from this. It feels like that got lost, didn't it, with the separation of the army
A
books,
little bit, yeah, because you're taking
and
allies and stuff like that.
yeah, and they never quite work the same way. And again, a nod to to the modern day. That's something that's unreleased is kind of hinted that that's coming back, or at least Beastmen are going to be available to use with your Chaos Warriors and your Marauder armies as well. And there's demons aren't really around yet either, so you'd love it. You'd love it in the modern in the modern old in the modern day prehistory of Warhammer. But yeah, I love the idea of just having that horde, that legion of chaos. Men and beasts, and I think
Yes.
for that's with the odd demon, like you said, would just be the
Yeah.
perfect chaos army for me.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got all that variation. In fact, loads of different unit types in your roster, haven't you? Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think that's very cool. But yeah, you do get the option to do that within this book. And there's a good amount of flexibility here. I mean, there's it's a solid page count with a lot of options. So you get
Yeah.
demonic weapons, you get chaos magic, chaos gifts, and then yeah, you've got all of your options for your actual warband creation. So yeah, I think it's a really fantastic book. I mean, we talked a little bit about a few amazing pieces of art. Do you have any particular favorites, or is it that
Lots. It
creativity
was
across?
really hard. Really hard. I was trying to choose just one or two. If I have to choose one, and I always love the bigger pieces which either have a large battle scene or something that I can get lost and imagine myself in. And it's the Realm of Chaos artwork quite early in the book, page 7, I think.
Right.
And you've just got these beautiful or not beautiful kind of corrupted trees and forest in front of you, and in the distance you've got your sort of chaos mountains and citadel and things with carrion birds flying, and it's just you don't want to be walking that way at all. But also, what some wonderful tales to be had finding out about journeys on that way. I just think it's beautiful, a really amazing piece of art.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And I think it's a Blanchian piece, and I think
Yeah, you can't
yeah,
be anyone else. That's one of those
yeah.
that you just kind of jumps out at you as Blanche
It really
at
does.
his
I mean,
best.
there's like there's a little sort of skeleton kind of zombie type tree dude down in the bottom right hand corner as well, which is just very, very
Yes.
cool and strange. Just has it.
There's loads. There's some teeth coming out of the tree
Yeah.
on the left as well. It's almost like a skull eyes within the body of the tree. It's such a wonderful. I bet you could sort of stare at it for hours if you had the full piece and a good quality sort of image of it with loads of different sort of details you'd find if you keep looking. I absolutely love it.
Yeah,
It's brilliant.
it's great. There's another John Blanche piece on page 41, which is the sort of the fortress of chaos on a giant skull that is just this
Yeah.
really, very, very creepy. But that is one that Thomas Pirinen talked about, and I think John Blanche himself talked about the fact that he hadn't finished it. He didn't have time to complete that particular image. So you can see it's actually been mirrored in order to create the
Uh,
two halves of this chaotic fortress. But I think it works really well. The mirroring creates a sort of it's a kind of an uncomfortable feeling when you're looking at it because
yeah.
it obviously is the same on both sides, but also it's so chaotic and strange that it has this kind of like weird. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I kind of get this weird vibe from it because of that similarity. It does it? It looks
And
unnatural.
perfect, and that's what
Yeah.
it should be unnatural, and yeah, absolutely perfect for the subject matter. Yeah, the artwork's just I'm not a huge fan of the cover.
Quite a simple
I
cover, isn't
suppose
it?
because it's a yeah. I think if you see it, review this as a book outside of the box set, it feels a little bit lacking. Nothing wrong with the artwork, but it just feels lacking compared to all the other wonderful covers there are. But I suppose this isn't the cover in
Yeah.
the same way as
Yeah, because they
other
actually
things
got the
are, because the
classic,
box
really
cover
good
is
box.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's easy to forget that with just looking at this book on its own. It feels a bit strange with that. And then something that stands out to me, because it's pretty much all black and white, this book, isn't it?
Yeah.
Apart from the Nurgle bright green picture, the artwork's cool, but I find it a little bit jarring within the context of the rest of the book. The start of the Hosts of Chaos, I think it was about page 37.
Sure.
And it just feels a little bit jarring compared to a lot of the other artwork that's in the book. I don't know
Yeah, and I
why,
don't
but
know
it
if
just
that's
kind of
just an edition thing, like a print or a PDF or
mm,
what have you. Whether or not there are
yeah,
other color pages, perhaps that didn't
there
make
might
the
be.
sort of color print. But I know what you mean. It's quite a lurid green. I
Mm,
do quite like this. I mean, this is a Wayne England sort of classic
yeah,
piece, and like his demons, I think are fantastic. He's got some Nurglings in this book that I think are just absolutely amazing because I think
oh,
Nurglings are always one of the coolest funniest things in a
yeah, they're hilarious. Yeah,
chaos, but they're so good. But yeah, I do think it is a quite striking piece though, and the green is quite
I don't mind
grotesque.
the art at all. It just feels compared to some of the tone of the book, some of the art,
Sure,
the black and white tone of some of the artwork, it just feel a little bit um, whoa. Feels more like the cover, if that makes sense, rather than,
sure.
and it's very different to the style of the John Blanche piece that we've just been talking about. But
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's and like you say, there are loads of amazing pieces, loads of really cool stuff. One other piece that I will call out, and I did allude to it earlier, was one of the Des Hanley pieces, the Greater
mm,
Demon of Tzeentch, the Changer of Ways. Like that, just is absolutely fantastic. There's one on page 66, and it's just like fully dominating the space, just looking absolutely amazing. And then there's also the sort of floating towers of Tzeentch in the background, which I've always loved. Just absolutely
yes,
amazing piece. Yeah, so I mean, and I say this, these are all favorite pieces, but this is from a whole list of favorite pieces. There are so many great evocative bits of art in this book.
yeah. It's just art on every page,
Mm.
and that's not always the case with these. But there's usually one or two pages where it's mostly text and a little bit, but you've got, as I said, there's a border on every page, isn't there? And it's quite a significant border with loads of detail going into it. I know a lot of it's repeated, but it just feels like it's full of such a strong image all the way through,
Mm.
that carries throughout the book. And yeah, I think that's one of the things that makes it so good.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's great. Really, really good book. I think it is a fitting update to the Realm of Chaos in the spirit of those two books that is fit for purpose within the fifth edition of the
Hmm.
game. And also, it like we say, it is this first step. It very much does sort of it is moving things to where the game is going to go. You can kind of see some of those early seeds that will germinate later. And I think for the most part, I like a lot of that stuff. There are elements where I'm not everything is always my favorite, but that's absolutely fine. Not everything is for me, but I think there's some really good stuff here that is going to like yield some really nice fruits later on in Warhammer's history. I mean, have you got any other thoughts before we wrap up on the Realm of Chaos, Stu?
Not really. It was nice sort of drawing together some of the stuff I love from those original Realm of Chaos books, and the more modern stuff that I'm reading at the moment. So it was nice seeing a little bit of a link to it. And like I said, the example with the Marauders, and finding that some of the stuff that's in the modern lore isn't just new stuff. It's stuff that that's been reused, and the inspirations are from this, which were many people's favourite writers of chaos. And Thomas Purdon's got a bit of a cult following through this and through definitely the sixth edition stuff. And it was always nice to see that some of the things that are in the modern game now were definitely influences or even taken directly from stuff that he's written.
Hmm.
And I think that's encouraging.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. I think, yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff to be had here, a lot of cool, chaotic stuff. It's not, you can find a lot of the stuff in here in earlier books, in later books. It's sort of reworked and reused in many ways and many times. But this is a good point in the history of it all to kind of take a look at it and just enjoy a lot of that stuff in a form that is just really fun, put together in a way that is really evocative. It is telling the story of the realm of chaos as a horrid place, really bad times to be had if you go and visit. But like that is all coming for the rest of the old world
Yeah,
and the Warhammer world at large. So you get that sense of threat and then a cool set of armies to back it up. It's great.
yeah, yeah, 100%.
Fantastic. Well, as ever, Stu, it has been absolutely fantastic to chat. We're going to be back again soon chatting about other Armies books and Codex books and classic Warhammer books. Until then, where can people find you online?
Miniature Realms. Check out the YouTube channel, and then you can find me everywhere else with supporting social media things.
Fantastic. And I'm Jordan Sorcery, pretty much everywhere on every platform. You can check out all my stuff as well. And as I say, we'll be back as pretty soon, I think, with more GW Book Club. So until then, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jordan, and this is Jordan Sorcery.